All righty, welcome back for another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today we got another episode for you, talking a little OU football recruiting. A crystal ball came in for a new player for Oklahoma from Parker Thune, and then we're going to be talking about maybe a visitor coming in next weekend. And then there's also some things that have happened over the weekend as far as softball and basketball. We're going to be talking about those and how the games were and implications of all that. But before we get into it, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, and TikTok. Everything's linked in the description below. You definitely need to turn on that notification bell because obviously if you guys are here and regular watchers, we've been off for the last couple of weeks or week and a half or so just because, it's the off season, kind of the dead part of the year and just kind of, taking a break. So if you don't have the notification bell on, you wouldn't know that this video has been posted unless it's a lot later. All right, so let's start. So softball, the winning streak came to an end, and what was it? 71 games, I believe, right?
Yeah, D1 record.
Yeah, I mean it's a record. And before we started recording, I wasn't actually sitting down watching the game, but I was keeping up with the score, and it was in the bottom of the third inning when Oklahoma was down 1-0. And I was telling you before we recorded or started recording, I just felt like Oklahoma was playing with fire. I mean, it's Louisiana. They've had a few close calls recently. It almost felt like the team, and I can't blame them. I mean, when you win as much as you do, the pressure starts building every game where this winning streak's going. And it just felt like the team was tense and maybe in their head a little bit, and putting the pressure on them. As much as I'd love to have seen the winning streak continue, it's honestly a good thing for the team to finally be like, well, it's over. We can kind of take a breath and just play softball at this point. What do you think?
I mean, for sure that load is off. They were uncharacteristically bad today. You look at, I think they had 4 errors. They tied the game in the 7th inning because a Louisiana outfielder had an error that allowed them to score and tie it. Kenzie Hansen had another chance to walk him off. It didn't work out this time, obviously. They started off the 8th inning with a couple errors. They let the bases get loaded, just sloppy. It wasn't their best day. But I mean, I agree with you. Now they can kind of just, it's over with, it's done, it doesn't matter anymore. Put it behind you and just. I mean, I still think this team's going to go out and do great things, obviously, but it's a good wake-up call for him too. I mean, I think at some point when you win 71 games in a row, you kind of, probably just start to feel a little bit bulletproof. And, obviously they're not.
Unfortunately, they're not. I mean, I feel like they should be, the way that how good they recruit and things like that. But really, it was remarkable. It doesn't change anything about the expectations of this team, going into, this summer. And I mean, this team's going to go compete for a national championship for sure. I think you'll see a more focused team and probably a more loose, relaxed team, and they'll get it rolling. And honestly, they might drop a couple. And
I mean, they got 3 or 4 games set with Texas later in the season, and they're, I think, they're 17-1 right now too. So they could end up dropping another 1 or 2 this season. But yeah, I agree with you. But that 71 running is going to be, I think, a record that stands for quite some time. That's going to stand the test of time for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous what they did. Speaking of, moving on, another OU sport, disappointing, OU basketball. Oklahoma hosted Coach Sampson back for the first time in 14 years, I think it was. OU ended up ultimately losing 87-85 to the Cougars, the #1 team in the country. OU had every opportunity to win that game. And unfortunately, Houston just shot the lights out of the gym. I mean, it was ridiculous what they were doing. And yet somehow, in typical OU basketball fashion, they were keeping up with them. I mean, one game previous, you watch them play Iowa State, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a train wreck of an offensive performance. And then you watch them, a couple days later, or it was 2-3 days later, and they were shooting like the lights out too.
Yeah.
And the way the game ended, I mean, Houston got bailed out. They kept dribbling the ball out, taking bad shots, and just the way the rebound. What was it? Darthrid, whatever, had the opportunity to grab that ball before she'd put it up. They had every opportunity to win that game, or at least send it to overtime.
It was tough. Yeah, I think obviously that play at the end there. Yeah, I mean, they kind of had it really, really well defended at first. That shot really didn't have a chance. It was kind of swarmed at the bucket or at the rim, and the unlucky bounce there, and the shot goes in, drops. Rest is history there. But there's, I mean, you mentioned Houston shot the lights out, and they did, and credit them. But I mean, OU shot the ball really, really well too. I think Rivaldo Suarez had 5 or 6 threes by himself. Darthur had a couple. JV McCollum finally starting to look like JV McCollum again. That team scored 45 points in total in Ames. That was their halftime score against Houston. So it was a night and day difference. Or that it was a different team. It was, if we could have that sort of offensive input every game, that team, I mean, is clearly capable of beating anybody in the country. They were right there with the #1 team in the land. I think the play that really looking back on that kind of hurts you is you score right before the half there to tie it at 45. And then obviously, the clock didn't run for a little bit. They reviewed it, and I'm sure they got it right and got the time off. But, giving up that 3 at the buzzer there, or the fake buzzer, that because it didn't go off or whatever. But I think that those 3 points end up hurting you a lot. Obviously, you lose by 2 points at the end of the game, and you give up a 3 to go into the half. And I think it was kind of a lucky bank shot 3, but that's the night Houston was having. Everything was kind of dropping. But I mean, I thought, really one of the best college basketball games of the season, just in general. Hard not to like that game, 87-85. That's a lot of points. It's a lot of fun. I obviously wish that, that McCollum shot late in the game would have been the shot that forced overtime. At first, it looked like it was going to be the shot that forced overtime. Just Houston got, they kind of got lucky there with the ball kind of squealing out. She got a good shot up, goes in. Sometimes it happens. They're #1 for a reason. They're real good. Sometimes you get the ball to bounce your way there.
You do. And it is what it is. I mean, it kind of summarizes that game is kind of what Oklahoma's season has turned into. They can be on one night and play with anyone in the country, and then they can also lose to anyone in the country. And it's kind of hard to believe that, Oklahoma started the year 13-1 in their first 14 games. They are now 19-10.
Yeah.
So they've gone 6-9 in conference play. They are now starting to inch closer and kind of on the bubble now of making the tournament. And it's hard to believe that at one point they were the number 9 team, I think was the highest they ended up being. They were a top 10 team in the country. And then ultimately, here they are. You're fighting for your NCAA, berth. I mean, into the tournament. I know you got the Big 12 tournament, but you've got Cincinnati. That's a winnable game. But honestly, going on the road at Texas, I don't know. I think Oklahoma probably splits these 2 games, goes 20-11, and then hopefully you win 1 or 2 in the Big 12 tournament. I mean, but the problem is we're going to draw. We're going to draw a really good team in the first round of the Big 12 tournament.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you'd like to see them win out. I think they can win out. I think Cincinnati and Texas are both beatable teams, but being at home for Cincinnati is going to help a lot. Obviously, being on the road in Austin is not fun, but I think you got to try to find a way to win both of those. Get to 21-10. I like your chances a lot more. Obviously, that Houston game, I think if you win that one, you would have punched your ticket there, but it's the way she goes sometimes. Hopefully they can just carry over that offensive momentum that they've developed or built after that Houston game. If they can keep playing that way offensively, I think they beat Cincinnati and Texas.
100%. The key word is if.
Yeah, it's a big if. A lot to ask.
It just, I don't know. It just is the way this team is. They're good enough to beat anyone, and they're bad enough to lose to anyone. I wouldn't say they're bad, but I just think they think too much, or I don't know what the problem
It's
is.
like, unfortunately, like a theme right now, I think, with the 3 years with Porter Moser and the basketball team. They seemingly always start the year off really hot. They come out of the gate real good. You know, that 13-1. I mean, I don't think they've been that good, but you know, they usually start the season pretty darn tough. And then for whatever reason, yeah, they kind of start playing not great at the worst time.
Yeah, it's just they implode. So it is what it is. Oklahoma I agree. If they win these last two, you feel really good about your chances. And then if you win one more, at least one more in the Big 12 tournament, then you end up, with 3 more wins, you're at 22. That gets you into the tournament for the most part. And I feel like this year's no different. So, but moving on into football, not an active regular season right now, but the regular season will be here before we know it. I mean, it is March. I mean, we are 5 months away at this point from the regular season starting. We're going to talk a couple players today. So the first guy we're going to be talking about is Cole Breeler. Parker Thune ended up entering a crystal ball in favor of Oklahoma following Richard Schneiderite. I don't know exactly if I'm saying that right, but he's another Rivals guy. He's a 6'3", 270-pound defensive tackle out of Princeton, New Jersey. So going back to the well out of New Jersey, where they went and got Logan Howland, I believe, is from New Jersey as well. Todd Bates and Brent Venables has identified kind of more of a diamond in the rough type of guy. I mean, he's a 4-star player, but he's starting to pick up, some decent offers. I mean, Michigan's hosted him for a visit, and he's got a handful of offers that are pretty darn impressive. I mean, he's got Maryland, Penn State, and a few other players. I mean, not the most highly rated, recruited guy, but Oklahoma sees something in him. And, I did some digging on some of his stats. It doesn't look like that there's much around for his junior season, which was last year. But as a sophomore, he ended up having 57 total tackles, and then he put together 7 sacks in that sophomore year. And then in 4 games, he had 4 sacks as a junior last year. I'm not sure if the stats are entirely up to date on that. But Oklahoma seems to be in the driver's seat here. They're going up into the Northeast. They have had some recent luck with the DMV area, the Maryland and some of the players that they pulled out of that area. And this is no different than what they've done in the past. And adding a guy like Cole Breeler, he seems, being 6'3", 270, a little bit of an underrated player. Oklahoma seems to be positioning themselves and kind of getting in before, his recruitment really blows up. Michigan's there, which is the biggest threat. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, I agree that Michigan is probably the biggest threat. But I mean, he's definitely going to be a diamond in the rough type prospect. But there's a reason that these offers are coming in. He's not going to be a bad player. Obviously, he's got. I mean, those numbers you read off: 57 tackles, 7 sacks, 4 sacks in 4 games last year. Those are really good. I mean, he would be joining, if he does ultimately commit to Oklahoma, a defensive line room that is pretty darn loaded. Especially you look at the 23, 24 classes or 24 class really, but there's going to be a lot of talent there, a lot of guys to beat out. I think he would be a guy that would kind of sit and develop for a little bit. But, I mean, he could be a player, I think. He's getting these offers for a reason. I think Oklahoma wants him for a reason. Obviously, I hope that it works out for us. But, we'll see how it goes. I think it's going to be a developmental type player. You got to get him right first. You're muted.
No, definitely. I mean, I agree. And at the end of the day, not everyone's going to be a 5-star because there's only, so many 5-star ratings that can go around. And just because you're a 5-star doesn't mean that you're, going to be the best player in the country. There's plenty of 3 stars and 4 stars that play well. So as a 4-star, I'd be happy if he jumped on board. It'll be interesting to see how everything kind of progresses with him. But it seems like Oklahoma's really positioned themselves well. Moving on to another guy is 2025 4-star safety Omarion Robinson. We've talked about him before out of Little Rock, Arkansas, so just not too far away. The number 20 safety in the class, according to 247. He on a little bit of a different, different aspect. He holds a ton of offers. He has offers from all the power programs. I mean, Oregon, Oklahoma, obviously, Florida State, Georgia, LSU, Texas. Pretty much he can write his ticket on wherever he wants to go, and he can go. He's been to Oklahoma before. Little Rock's not very far from Norman in the grand scheme of things. Oklahoma seems to be a landing spot. He seems to be the primary target for the safety spot, the number 2 safety spot, with Jonah Williams being there. Omarion Robinson seems to be kind of a guy that they want to pair with him. And that safety class that Oklahoma's got, or not just the class, but the safety room, is deep and it's competitive right now. So they're not taking just anyone in the safety position, it seems like. It's a 2-horse race right now. Oregon and Oklahoma, but I wouldn't rule out Georgia if Georgia really starts getting into this. Obviously, I'm sure they are recruiting him, but I just feel like Georgia and the LSUs of the world really play, if they really push, they can make it really interesting. But Oklahoma has a lot to like about this. I don't really feel that Arkansas is truly a true threat just because of the way the program is right now. I know it's the in-state school. It just feels like it's Oklahoma and Oregon right now, and Oklahoma's set to host them next week. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't blame them for not considering Arkansas. I understand it's home school, but yeah, they're tough right now in football. No, Marion Robinson, man, there's a lot to like here. I think he plays similarly to Jonah Williams. He's got good size as well, 6 foot, 170. 171, whatever it is, but he's got a good athletic frame there. He's a guy that also returns kicks, kind of similarly to what Jonah Williams has been doing at his high school. He's got 4 touchdowns on defense and special teams combined last year, so he's dynamic with the ball in his hand. I think if you can bring in a guy like Jonah Williams, who's a 5-star elite level prospect, and you pair him with Marion Robinson, that's a hell of a haul in the 2025 class for your safety room. And you mentioned how deep that room was already. If you're able to bring in 2 guys like that, you're just going to keep that going. It's going to be strong for years to come. There's a lot to like about Robinson. I think he's a guy that has the potential to kind of earn his way onto the field in a lot of different roles. I think he can start off as a special teamer relatively early in his career, maybe a return type guy. He's capable. And then kind of really start to blossom into that role. I think, if we get Jonah Williams, he's going to be the guy that kind of has that immediate, like Peyton Bowen type effect, where he's kind of on the field. But Omarion Robinson can easily find his way onto the field in other roles at first, whether it be special teams or something, and then kind of start cracking that rotation on the defensive side of the ball. You're muted again.
Jeez, that week and a half off is really throwing me off. No, if Oklahoma can land both Williams and Robinson, that safety room is just ridiculous.
It's one of the deepest rooms on the team right now, and it's going to keep carrying on.
And it just goes to show, like, Brennan Hall, all those guys on the defensive side of the ball, those position coaches are a must keep.
Yeah.
They're all doing well, and I know Todd Bates is getting a pay raise, and deservingly so, to make him one of the highest paid defensive lineman coaches in the country. Oklahoma knows, and I think they're fully aware of what they've got with Brandon Hall. So it's trending well for Oklahoma. We'll see what happens with his visit this coming weekend. I would imagine he will be locking in an official visit. But exactly if Oklahoma's a landing spot or not, it's tough to say at this point. But you'd like to think that Oklahoma's got a little bit of the proximity and has a little bit of an advantage to potentially keeping him from going either to Eugene or Georgia or LSU. You would hope Oklahoma would. So that's all I've got. Do you have anything else, or do you want to do the end-of-video challenge?
No, yeah, we can roll the end of video. We kind of talked about a lot of different things tonight. I thought it was kind of a pretty fun show. I always like the opportunity to get on here and talk. As much as we love OU football and OU recruiting, it is kind of fun too. And unfortunately, we're talking about 2 losses with softball and basketball, but it is fun sometimes to talk about other sports that we support here too. So, with basketball coming to an end, Brum, we talked about it. They are I think they're the definition right now of a fringe tournament team. I think if the decision was being made today, I think they're a tournament team. But there's still 2 games left in the regular season. There's still the Big 12 tournament. We'll see how it plays out for them. I guess we'll do your prediction for OU basketball's final record. So I think you picked 20-10 with a split. I'll go ahead and say they went out. They're 20-11 for you. I'll go 21-10. And I think ultimately that they'll be a tournament team. I guess that'll be my prediction here.
Yeah, I think they split, so they go 20-11. I think they win 1 in the Big 12 tournament. They go 21-12, and they lose in the second round. 21-12. 21 wins, I think, gets you in. Barely.
Hey, barely is good enough. But
I mean, all you need is, so you're telling me there's a chance. I mean, you just have to be invited to the big dance.
Exactly. Porter's team seemed to get hot in that tournament. So we have yet to see Porter lead the Sooners to the tournament. So it'd be fun to see it, and hopefully those boys can catch some fire.
Speaking of just college basketball, the one thing I want to add, did you see the score of the Kentucky-Arkansas game?
I missed it because I was at drill, but I came back and I heard that it was like 110-100 or something.
Yeah, crazy. It was absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Good times. But all right, if you made it this far, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, and TikTok. Everything's linked in the description below, and we'll catch you guys next time.